There is a message God has been carrying for the chosen one, a message held in perfect timing until the moment it could truly be received. Some words are meant for a particular season, and this is one of them. Today, God is speaking about tomorrow, about what it means, what it brings, and why the chosen one holds such an important place in what is about to unfold. The final moment is tomorrow. It is not hidden somewhere far down the road, and it is not waiting in an uncertain future beyond your reach. Tomorrow marks the closing of a season that has stretched longer than you expected. A season that has asked much of you and shaped you in ways you may only now be beginning to recognize. God says the ending arrives tomorrow, and the chosen one needs to understand why those words carry so much weight. This is not an ending that happens by chance. It is not a matter of fortunate timing or circumstances finally arranging themselves while the chosen one happens to be nearby. God is pointing directly to the chosen one and saying that their journey, their endurance, and their willingness to remain faithful through the long process are all part of the reason this moment has arrived. The season you have walked through was never without purpose. It had a destination from the beginning, and that destination was always connected to what was being formed within you. The completion point was never determined by a date on a calendar or by outside conditions finally lining up. It was connected to who the chosen one was becoming through every challenge, every lesson, and every step of growth along the way. And now that readiness is here. The work of formation has reached its completion, and tomorrow stands before you because the chosen one is prepared for what comes next. This is one of the most important truths to receive in this moment, because understanding it changes how you step into the next chapter. Sometimes the chosen one begins to believe that breakthrough arrives through something external. A door opens, an obstacle moves, circumstances shift, and suddenly everything changes. It is easy to imagine that the ending of a difficult season comes from outside forces finally moving in your favor. From that perspective, the chosen one becomes the recipient of the change rather than the reason for it. But God is revealing something deeper. The reason this season reaches its conclusion is not because the environment has changed. It is because the chosen one has changed. What was developed through the waiting, what was strengthened through the pressure, and what was refined through the endurance have all brought you to this point. The season was always going to end when the person it was shaping became ready. That is what tomorrow represents. The ending is not happening to the chosen one. It is happening because of the chosen one. The difference may seem small, but it changes everything. Someone who believes they simply received a gift may approach tomorrow cautiously, waiting to see what happens next. Someone who understands they were prepared for this moment steps forward with confidence, knowing that what God is releasing is the very thing He has been building within them all along. Tomorrow is more than a conclusion. It is the beginning that the entire journey has been moving toward. The formation season was never an endless cycle of waiting. It was a path leading somewhere specific, and every lesson, every refinement of character, every deepening of wisdom and discernment has been guiding the chosen one toward this arrival. What opens tomorrow is connected to everything that came before it. The opportunities, relationships, alignments, and assignments ahead are not random events. They belong to the path God has been preparing through the whole of your journey. The chosen one who understands this begins to see why they are the reason this moment exists. What is opening was designed for the person the formation produced. It is not meant for just anyone. The experiences you endured shaped you into someone uniquely prepared for what comes next. The assignment and the formation belong together, fitting one another with remarkable precision. The person you have become is the person this next season requires, and for the chosen one who has spent time wondering whether the delay was somehow their fault, whether they were missing something, doing something wrong, or failing to become ready fast enough, hear this clearly. The formation was never a test you were struggling to pass. It was a process unfolding exactly as it needed to unfold. The length of the journey was never determined by your performance. It was determined by what was being created within you. Some things require time because of their depth, their complexity, and the significance of what they are meant to become. The formation lasted as long as it did because what God was producing in the Chosen One deserved the fullness of that process. And now what was being formed is ready. What was being formed within the Chosen One has reached its completion. The shaping season has done its work, and what God has been cultivating through every challenge, every delay, and every act of endurance now stands ready. Tomorrow is not arriving because the Chosen One finally discovered the missing piece or corrected some hidden mistake. It is arriving because the process has fulfilled its purpose, and what was being prepared is ready to emerge. The Chosen One does not need to spend tonight proving anything. There is no final test waiting to determine whether they qualify, and no last requirement standing between them and what comes next. The readiness is already present, woven into who they have become through the journey itself. Tomorrow comes because of the person the Chosen One already is, not because of something they still need to accomplish. There is a unique feeling that comes when a long-awaited moment draws close. The Chosen One, who has spent so much time enduring, hoping, and continuing forward, now stands near the threshold of change, and that experience carries many emotions at once. Excitement rises naturally, yet it often arrives alongside reflection, awareness, and a quiet understanding that something significant is about to shift. The hope that carried the Chosen One through the middle of the journey had a different texture. It was the kind of hope that survives without visible evidence, the kind that keeps moving forward simply because it trusts God's character. But the hope connected to tomorrow feels different. It carries the nearness of something that can almost be touched, something no longer living only in the distance but drawing close enough to be felt. At the same time, the Chosen One senses the weight of what stands ahead. Crossing from a season of preparation into a season of arrival brings responsibility as well as fulfillment. There is an awareness that what has been built through the long season will soon be called forward into expression, and that realization can feel both inspiring and deeply sobering. God is present in every part of that experience. He welcomes the excitement, and he understands the seriousness that accompanies it. The Chosen One does not need to separate one feeling from the other, or pretend that only celebration belongs in this moment. God stands with them in the full reality of the threshold, reminding them that he prepared them for every part of what comes next. Tomorrow also carries another gift. It offers the Chosen One a new perspective on the entire journey. While living through the formation season, it was only possible to see a small portion of the path at a time. The next step was visible, perhaps the one after that, but the larger picture remained hidden beyond the horizon. That limited view is part of every season of formation. Faith continues moving forward, even when it cannot see the full design. The Chosen One learned how to walk without having every answer, how to trust without seeing the entire road, and how to keep going when understanding remained incomplete. When tomorrow arrives, the perspective changes. Looking back from the place of arrival, the Chosen One will begin to recognize connections that once seemed impossible to understand. Events that felt unrelated will reveal their purpose, and experiences that once appeared confusing will begin to fit together as part of a greater pattern. The difficulties will make more sense. The delays will carry new meaning. The lessons, refinements, and inner transformations that unfolded throughout the long season will reveal why they were necessary. What once felt fragmented will begin to form a complete picture, and many questions that followed the Chosen One through the journey will finally find their answers. The hard days will no longer appear random. The seasons of waiting will reveal their purpose. Even the things that were removed and the things that remained will begin to make sense through a clearer understanding of where God was leading all along. The Chosen One will see that every step was held within a greater design, one that God understood from the very beginning. As tomorrow approaches, it is important to recognize what the Chosen One already carries. This moment is not about gaining something that has been missing. It is about recognizing the qualities that have already been developed through the journey and bringing them forward into what comes next. The Chosen One carries discernment. Through years of listening, trusting, and navigating uncertainty, an ability has been refined within them to perceive what exists beneath the surface. They have learned to recognize what others overlook, to sense deeper realities within circumstances, relationships, and decisions. This discernment was not created overnight. It was strengthened through every season that required dependence on God's guidance. The discernment the chosen one carries is proven through experience. It has been tested in difficult places and refined through real challenges. It is no longer simply an idea or a potential gift. It has become a trusted part of who they are. The chosen one also carries steadiness. There is a strength that develops in people who have endured long seasons without giving up, and that strength cannot be manufactured through comfort. The pressures that once seemed overwhelming have become part of the process that taught them how to remain grounded, even when circumstances around them shifted. This steadiness is valuable because it comes from experience. The chosen one knows what it means to remain faithful when answers are scarce and outcomes remain unseen. That inner stability will travel with them into tomorrow and support them through whatever the next season requires. The chosen one carries compassion as well. Having lived through difficult seasons personally, they understand pain from the inside rather than from a distance. They know what it feels like to wait, to wrestle with uncertainty, and to continue forward through moments that seem endless. Because of that, they are able to meet others with a depth of understanding that cannot be learned any other way. That compassion will become one of the greatest gifts they bring into the next chapter. The people they encounter will sense that they are standing with someone who truly understands struggle, someone who carries empathy shaped through lived experience rather than observation alone. The chosen one also carries faithfulness. This is not the faithfulness of someone whose path was easy. It is the faithfulness of someone who continued believing when there was little visible evidence, who kept showing up when the reward remained unseen, and who chose trust again and again throughout the long season. That faithfulness has become more than a character trait. It has become a strength the chosen one can draw from moving forward. The same faithfulness that sustained them through formation will sustain them through what comes next. And those who encounter the chosen one will recognize the reliability, integrity, and trustworthiness that were forged through every step of the journey. As tomorrow draws near, there is another part of the chosen one that deserves attention as well. The assignment ahead will call upon the full capacity that God has placed within them from the beginning, including the wisdom, clarity, and mental strength that have been quietly developing throughout this entire process. There is something important the chosen one needs to understand about the strength they carry into tomorrow. A long season of formation asks a great deal from a person, and carrying that weight for an extended time can create the feeling that parts of you have been buried beneath the pressure. Yet what God placed within the chosen one was never lost. It may have felt hidden beneath responsibility, disappointment, or exhaustion, but the original capacity remains intact, waiting to be fully expressed again. The challenges of the journey did not erase what was placed inside you. They may have narrowed your view at times, or made it harder to access the confidence and clarity that once felt natural, but they did not diminish the design God created. The chosen one is approaching tomorrow with far more strength, wisdom, and inner capacity than they may realize. What has been developed through the journey is ready to serve the season ahead. I want to speak to the chosen one about what it means to hear God say, "You are the reason." That statement carries a responsibility, but it is important to understand the nature of that responsibility correctly. It is not the weight of pressure resting on your shoulders. It is the gift of authorization. God is not declaring that the chosen one is the reason in order to create anxiety about performance. He is not asking you to prove yourself worthy of what is coming. He is declaring that the authority to step forward already exists within you. The journey produced something real, and the person standing here now is the evidence of that work. The chosen one did not arrive at this moment by accident. Every experience, every lesson, every refinement contributed to who they have become. What they carry today and who they have become through the formation is exactly why tomorrow holds the significance that it does. This authorization creates a different way of stepping into the future. It is not arrogance, and it is not self-promotion. It is the quiet confidence of someone who knows that God has seen every chapter of their story, every hidden struggle, every moment of endurance, and still says, "You are ready." The chosen one who receives that truth approaches tomorrow differently. They no longer stand at the threshold wondering whether they belong there. They no longer hesitate, waiting for someone else to confirm what God has already confirmed. They move forward because they understand that the season opening before them is connected to everything that has been formed within them. There is also something important to understand about the ending that arrives tomorrow. The word ending can sound final, as though something is coming to a complete stop. But that is not the kind of ending God is speaking about here. What is arriving is a transition. The long season of preparation is reaching its completion. The chapter marked by waiting, development, and hidden growth is drawing to a close. Yet the journey itself continues. In many ways, the next chapter is the one every previous chapter has been preparing the chosen one to enter. God works through transitions. Every closed door prepared the way for another opening. Every season of formation created capacity for a future assignment. Every ending contained the seed of a beginning that had not yet revealed itself. Tomorrow stands as the bridge between what has been developing and what is now ready to emerge. The chosen one who understands this sees tomorrow differently. It is more than relief that a difficult season has ended. It is the recognition that the destination the journey was moving toward is finally coming into view. That understanding shapes the way they respond to what opens next. Someone focused only on leaving hardship behind naturally looks toward rest, but the chosen one who recognizes the purpose behind the journey begins looking toward what they were prepared to do. Tomorrow is not simply the end of preparation. It is the beginning of living out what that preparation was always intended for. There is also a specific kind of faith required at this threshold. The faith that carried the chosen one through the formation season was the faith of endurance. It was the faith that continued believing through silence, through uncertainty, and through long stretches where visible evidence remained absent. That kind of faith builds extraordinary depth within a person. But the faith required now carries a different expression. The challenge is no longer holding on through the distance. The challenge becomes stepping forward as the door begins to open. The chosen one is being invited to move from believing that something is coming to embracing the reality that it is arriving. The faith of tomorrow is the faith of crossing the threshold. It is the willingness to receive what God has been preparing, to inhabit the season that has been approaching, and to walk confidently into the assignment that once existed only as a promise. The same God who sustained the chosen one through the long season is now preparing them to step fully into what that season was always leading toward. The chosen one who remained faithful through the long middle of the journey sometimes finds that stepping into arrival requires a different kind of faith altogether. This is not because their faith is lacking. In many ways, it is because their faith has become so deeply rooted in endurance that holding on feels more familiar than stepping forward. The posture of waiting, trusting, and persevering has been practiced for so long that it naturally becomes the way they approach every season. Yet there comes a moment when the door begins to open. There comes a moment when faith is no longer expressed through endurance alone, but through movement. The chosen one is being invited into that moment now. The transition from holding on to stepping through is a sacred shift, and God is already preparing their heart for it. When God says the final moment is tomorrow, He is doing more than making an announcement. He is preparing the chosen one internally for what is approaching. He is gently leading them out of the mindset that was necessary during the season of waiting and into the mindset required for the season of arrival. By the time tomorrow comes, the chosen one is meant to recognize that they are no longer merely waiting for what God promised. They are stepping into it. There is another part of tomorrow that deserves to be understood. The formation season was never only about the chosen one and what they would eventually receive. It was never centered solely on personal fulfillment. personal vindication, or the satisfaction of seeing promises unfold. Something much larger has always been woven into the story. The formation was shaping a person for a purpose. It was producing the specific qualities, understanding, and depth required for a specific assignment. The chosen one was being prepared because there are people connected to that preparation, people whose lives will be touched by what was developed during the hidden years. Tomorrow is not only the final moment before the chosen one enters a new season, it is also the final moment before the people they were built to reach encounter them. There are people on the other side of this transition who need someone capable of understanding what they carry. They need someone who has walked through difficult terrain and emerged with wisdom, compassion, and perspective. Those people have their own stories, their own struggles, and their own seasons of waiting. The chosen one will be able to recognize them because they have lived through something similar themselves. The very experiences that once felt heavy and confusing are becoming part of the reason they will be able to guide, encourage, and support others. This is part of the deeper meaning behind God's declaration that the chosen one is the reason. The season lasted as long as it did, because it was producing a person capable of carrying what comes next. The refinement reached the depth it reached because the assignment requires that depth. The people connected to that assignment needed the person the formation was creating. And now that person is ready. The chosen one who steps into tomorrow with this understanding carries a different kind of motivation. They no longer view the assignment through the lens of personal achievement alone. They understand that their journey has always been connected to lives beyond their own. There are people the chosen one has carried in their heart for a long time, even if they could never fully explain why. There are faces, burdens, and callings that have quietly remained present throughout the formation season. Those people are part of the reason the process was worth every difficult step, every delay, and every sacrifice. Before tomorrow arrives, there is also something the chosen one needs to release. Long seasons leave impressions behind. Certain habits of thought and emotional patterns that once served a purpose can follow a person into a new season if they are not intentionally surrendered. Some of those patterns belong to the waiting season and cannot travel with the chosen one where they are going. The first thing that must be released is the residue of waiting itself. A long season teaches patience, persistence, and trust without visible confirmation. Those qualities are valuable, but they can also leave behind a quiet hesitation, a tendency to hold expectations loosely, because disappointment became familiar territory. After waiting for so long, fully believing that the arrival is finally here can feel unfamiliar. The chosen one may find themselves holding back emotionally, almost protecting themselves from hope. Yet God is inviting them to release that hesitation. Tomorrow is real. The opening is real. What is approaching is the very thing the formation has been preparing them to receive. The chosen one can move beyond tentative expectation and into confident anticipation. They can allow themselves to believe again, not because circumstances demand it, but because God has brought them to the threshold for a reason. The season of preparation has completed its work, and the season of arrival is drawing near. There is another residue that often remains after a long journey. It is the residue of disappointments that never became what they appeared to be. Along the way, there were moments that seemed promising, opportunities that looked ready to open, and timelines that felt close enough to touch. When those moments passed, they left behind a certain caution around hope. Over time, the chosen one they have learned to temper expectation in order to protect their heart. Yet God is asking them to release that protective caution as well. What is arriving now is not another unfinished possibility. It is not another temporary glimpse of what could have been. It is the fulfillment toward which all those earlier moments were pointing. The opening before the chosen one is real. The threshold is real. Tomorrow carries a different weight because it marks the arrival of something that has been forming beneath the surface for a very long time. There is one more effect of the formation season that deserves attention. Extended periods of waiting have a way of narrowing a person's sense of what is possible. Not because faith disappears, and not because hope is lost, but because the constant experience of limited visibility slowly reshapes expectations. The chosen one may have adjusted their vision to match what could be seen in the moment. They may have learned to expect less simply because expecting more became difficult to sustain over time. This is a natural response to a long season, and it says nothing negative about the depth of their faith. When the road ahead remains hidden for long stretches, the heart often adapts to what feels immediately visible. It becomes easier to measure possibility by present circumstances than by the promises that first inspired the journey. And yet, standing at the edge of tomorrow, the chosen one is being reminded that what God has prepared has always been larger than what limited visibility allowed them to imagine. Over time, that narrowing of expectation becomes a form of protection. It helps the chosen one carry the distance between where they are and where they believe they are going. It softens the weight of waiting and makes long seasons easier to survive. Yet every form of protection leaves something behind, and in this case, it can slowly reduce the size of the horizon the chosen one allows themselves to see. Tomorrow begins the reversal of that narrowing. What God is opening is not limited by the smaller expectations that developed during the waiting season. It is aligned with the original vision. The deeper intention that existed before hardship, delay, and uncertainty taught the chosen one to expect less. What is coming is connected to the fullness of what God placed within them from the very beginning. The chosen one may discover that what opens is larger than they allowed themselves to imagine. It may stretch beyond the careful hopes that felt safe during the long middle of the journey. Yet this will not feel like a random surprise. It will feel like recognition, as though something deeply familiar is finally returning into view. What the chosen one experiences tomorrow is the restoration of a vision that never disappeared from God's sight. While the chosen one learned to navigate with a smaller picture, God continued holding the complete one. As the next chapter unfolds, more of that original picture begins to reveal itself, and what once seemed distant starts to make sense in a new way. I also want to speak about the nature of the assignment that begins tomorrow. Not the exact details, because those unfold uniquely for every chosen one, but the character of what is being entrusted to them. The assignment is not centered on visibility, recognition, or outward achievement. It is centered on impact that reaches deeper than appearances. The chosen one was never being prepared merely to impress people. They were being prepared to influence lives at a level that lasts. Surface-level impressions fade quickly, but genuine transformation reaches into the interior of a person and changes the way they live, think, and move through the world. That is the kind of impact connected to this next season. What God developed through the formation season is not a performance. It is a presence. It is the presence of a chosen one, who has been refined through experience, shaped through endurance, and strengthened through a journey that required real growth. The power of that presence comes from its authenticity, and authenticity carries a weight that performance never can. The chosen one carries the ability to reach people beyond words alone. There is something within them that has been forged through the realities of life, and that reality speaks for itself. The changes it produces in others happen because the formation created something genuine. And genuine things naturally create genuine results when they are released into the world. Tomorrow marks the beginning of that release. The people who need what the chosen one carries will encounter it, and those encounters will matter. The impact will not come from striving to prove anything. It will come from allowing what has already been formed to flow naturally into the places God prepared. There is also something sacred about the moment of stepping through, when tomorrow arrives and the chosen one takes that first step into what is opening before them. That moment deserves attention. It is more than a date on a calendar. It is a threshold that the entire formation season has been moving toward. The chosen one is being invited to recognize that crossing consciously, to pause and understand what it represents, to acknowledge the years of growth, the hidden work, the lessons, and the endurance that made this moment possible. Awareness brings a level of intentionality that shapes everything that follows. When a person truly recognizes the significance of a threshold, they enter the next season differently. They arrive with gratitude, clarity, and purpose. They understand that something meaningful has taken place within them. and they carry that understanding into every step ahead. That is why God is speaking about tomorrow now. Before it arrives, He is preparing the chosen one internally so they can recognize the moment when it comes. He is helping them become fully present for the crossing rather than allowing it to pass unnoticed. The arrival deserves to be received with the same depth of awareness that the preparation required. Step into tomorrow consciously. Let yourself feel the reality of what is happening. Allow the ending of the long season and the beginning of the next one to settle deeply within you. The chosen one hearing this message is being prepared to enter that moment fully awake to its meaning. There is also something powerful about the specific word tomorrow. God could have spoken in broader terms. He could have said soon, in due time, or in a coming season. Yet tomorrow carries a different feeling because it brings the promise close enough to touch. Tomorrow exists within reach of the heart and imagination. It allows the chosen one to hold the possibility in a way that feels real rather than distant. There is grace in that nearness because it changes the nature of the waiting. The request is no longer to endure indefinitely. The request is simply to hold on through one more night. The chosen one has already proven they can endure long seasons. They have already survived the difficult nights, the uncertain stretches, and the moments when no visible evidence appeared. Compared to everything that came before, tonight carries a different weight. Tonight is not about enduring another season. It is about standing at the edge of a new one. God is saying, hold on for tonight. Just tonight. The hardest part of the journey was not this evening. The hardest part was everything that came before it. The waiting that shaped you, the faith that sustained you, and the perseverance that carried you this far have already done their work. Tonight is the final night of the long season. Tomorrow is the day, so let these truths settle deeply within the chosen one. Let them become more than encouraging words. Let them become the foundation from which you step into what comes next. The final moment is tomorrow, not someday in the distance, not after another cycle of striving, and not after reaching some standard you believe you still need to attain. Tomorrow, the day that follows this night, has already been named by God, and the chosen one is invited to receive it. You are the reason this season reaches its conclusion, not because circumstances suddenly improved, and not because everything around you finally aligned. You are the reason because of who you have become. The formation has done its work. The readiness already exists within you. A long season was shaping a specific person for a specific purpose, and that person now stands ready. The assignment opening before the chosen one is not something they must earn. The formation has already produced what the assignment requires. When tomorrow arrives, you step through as the chosen one God has been shaping all along. Fully formed, fully prepared, fully authorized, built for what is opening before you. And now I want to speak to the chosen one about tonight, because tonight stands quietly on the edge of the final moment. The way you inhabit this evening carries its own significance, and there is something God wants you to understand before the morning arrives. And the way the chosen one lives this evening matters more than they may realize. Tonight is not simply another night in the long season. It is the evening before arrival, the quiet space that exists between everything that has been and everything that is about to begin. Because of that, there is a specific invitation waiting for the chosen one tonight, and it is not an invitation into striving or anxious preparation. God is not asking the chosen one to spend this night worrying about whether they will be ready when tomorrow arrives. He is not asking them to search for one final lesson, one final breakthrough, or one final proof of worthiness. The invitation is far gentler than that. It is an invitation to rest in what has already been completed. The preparation is not ahead of you. The preparation is behind you. Every day of the formation season carried a purpose. Every difficult choice, every act of endurance, every prayer whispered in uncertainty, every moment of faith when visible answers were absent, all of it was preparation. The work has already been done, and tonight is an opportunity to trust that truth. The chosen one does not need to spend this evening trying to become someone else. They do not need to force readiness into existence. What God has been shaping throughout the entire journey stands complete. The invitation now is simply to rest in the reality that what was being prepared is prepared. Within that rest, there is also room for gratitude. There is something powerful about looking back across the long season and recognizing not only what it required, but what it produced. The chosen one, who can sit with gratitude tonight, even for the difficult parts, enters tomorrow carrying something different than anxiety. Gratitude changes the atmosphere of the heart. It allows the chosen one to look at who they have become and acknowledge that the journey created something valuable. The challenges were real, the waiting was real, and the cost was real, but so was the transformation. There is peace that comes from recognizing that the formation was worth what it asked of you. The chosen one who enters tomorrow from that place carries a settled confidence. They carry the calm strength of someone who has made peace with their journey and accepted what it produced. Instead of rushing toward tomorrow with uncertainty, they arrive with quiet assurance, grounded in who they are and what they now carry within them. Tonight is an invitation to peace. Tomorrow is the day. The chosen one, who has endured the long formation season, is about to understand why the waiting mattered. Not only because visible outcomes begin to emerge, but because the deeper meaning of the journey begins to reveal itself. The pieces that once seemed disconnected start fitting together, and the purpose hidden within the process becomes easier to see. The formation was never merely producing outcomes, it was producing a specific person prepared for a specific purpose. Seeing the next chapter begin is, in many ways, seeing the person the journey created step into the place they were always meant to occupy. God never promised that every moment of the process would make sense while it was happening. He never promised that every day of endurance would immediately feel rewarding. What he promised was purpose, and tomorrow begins revealing the larger picture of that purpose in a way that could not be fully understood before now. As the chosen one moves into tomorrow, things that have been developing quietly beneath the surface will begin to emerge into view. What was hidden will gradually become visible. What was being arranged beyond your sight will begin to reveal itself. What faith has been holding on to through the long season will start taking shape in ways that can finally be recognized. And when those things begin to appear, they will confirm something your spirit has carried all along. God was working. Even during the silent seasons, he was working. Even during the stretches when progress seemed invisible, he was working. What begins tomorrow is not a sudden change in his activity, it is the unveiling of what he has been building the entire time. Before tomorrow arrives, there is one final truth that needs to settle deeply within the chosen one. You were built for this. Not in some vague or general sense, but in a deeply personal and intentional way. The core placed within you, the formation that shaped you, and the assignment now opening before you have always belonged together. These are not separate parts of your story. They are expressions of the same purpose unfolding across time. The call initiated the journey. The formation prepared the vessel. The assignment now invites the chosen one into the expression of what has been developing all along. When God says that the chosen one is the reason tomorrow is what it is, he is speaking about the person he has been shaping through every chapter of the journey, from the first stirring of purpose to the completion of formation. This process has always been connected to who you were becoming. He chose you. He shaped you. And now he is releasing you into what he prepared. Step into tomorrow with the confidence of someone who understands that truth. Not a confidence rooted in performance or self-importance, but a confidence rooted in trust. The God who called you is the same God who carried you. The God who carried you is the same God who prepared you. And the God who prepared you is the same God standing at the threshold of tomorrow. He is saying, "This is what I prepared you for. This is what the journey was building toward. Step forward, chosen one. Tomorrow is yours to enter. God sees you. God has walked beside you through every part of the formation. God remains with you now, and the reason you are ready is not because you somehow became strong enough on your own. You are ready because God has faithfully completed the work He began within you. As tomorrow approaches, remember that God prepares the whole person. The wisdom gained through the journey, the discernment refined through difficulty, the compassion born from endurance, and the clarity developed through trust all belong to the person stepping forward now. Nothing that was formed was wasted. The chosen one who crosses this threshold carries both the depth of the formation and the strength that emerged from it. Tomorrow is not the beginning of becoming. Tomorrow is the beginning of expressing what has already been formed. The final moment is tomorrow, and the chosen one who steps into that moment carrying the fullness of what God has developed within them is stepping into exactly what the entire journey was preparing them for. Let tomorrow begin with everything God has already placed inside you, fully alive, fully present, and fully available.